All right, guys, welcome back. Today we got a special guest. We got a very special guest. I say that a lot, and I mean it a lot. We have Avianna Wolfe with Stoll Wolfe. Did I say it right? Please tell me I said it right.
You did.
Okay,
You got
awesome.
it on the first try.
As soon as I said, hold on, I forgot it. you know, that's normally how it goes. We're going to talk about all the cool stuff that they're doing. She was gracious enough to send over some samples. We're dipping into those. And a super sweet Glen. Yeah, that's awesome. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what kind of got you guys into whiskey? Like, what was this the life goal, or was this just you happened upon it, or was it that your grandpappy's grandpappy did it and you decided to take over the tradition?
Well, interesting. It's kind of a long and winding road to where we are. I'm sure you hear that quite often. I feel like the whiskey road is a long and bumpy one.
It is.
So, Erik and I met in New York City. That's where I'm from originally.
Okay.
Erik's family is originally from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, in Lititz, which is where we are, where we distill presently. And I managed 3-star restaurants and beverage programs, and obviously was an avid whiskey drinker. And Erik came from the marketing world and was desperately trying to get out of it and really make something and be able to touch, sort of feel, hold, smell, taste a product, as opposed to, just kind of making stuff up in marketing. So he was actively, I think, looking for something that really connected. So that sort of started him on his journey of history. So really, I think it's the history that sparked so much of what we do. And then just also being in the restaurant world and managing restaurants in New York City, where was a lot of slow food movement, and so many foodstuffs and really cool things were coming out of Lancaster County. And he was like, well, that's where I'm from. He's like, that's where I grew up. He's like, everybody here is like really into, of course, because you're in the city, everyone's like super into like the agriculture and the history. And, sometimes where you are, in the place that you're from, it's sort of taken for granted. So I think that set us on our journey. And within his sort of history nerd world, he made friends with a local historian, Ethan Smith, here in Lancaster County, who put him in touch with Dick Stoll. And then I think meeting Dick and talking to Dick, sort of within the whiskey history space, kind of launched everything. And that sort of took us on our journey. And he was like, well, really asking the questions like, why has nobody preserved this legacy? Mm-hmm. And why is Dick Stoll, who distilled H. Hirsch bourbon, not distilling anymore? Like, just kind of like, what's wrong with the world that, he's not getting his due, and, not a lot of people really know about, all the great things that he did. So that sort of like, I think, set us on the path of, and then after that, it was a very, long one of trying to figure it all out. Cause obviously we were totally new to whiskey making. I mean, thankfully we had Dick by our side that, really, as we call him, was our Yoda, and helped us in all the ways. So we were very lucky in that regard. But really it was like history, meeting Dick, wanting to connect, I think, with his long-standing family history in Lancaster County. So there definitely are a lot of millers and distillers in his lineage as well, just because I mean, in Lancaster County, I don't think you could at a certain time, swing a cat and not hit distilleries, just given that it's such an agrarian place.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, because I love it when a distillery, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you guys on, when they're trying to preserve the history and they're trying to go, maybe not take it back, because obviously we have new methods of doing things and we can get into those we can get into those as well. But preserving that history, I at the time of this recording, I will have already completed, but I was doing a book club on the history of Tennessee whiskey and how it's
cool.
it's very torrid past and all the things, and it was really intriguing to me. Yeah, the whiskey's fine, whatever, but the history behind it, what really intrigued me. And I know,
of course,
with some of the people that are in your circle that I know as well, one of those being Alan Bishop, when you have people like that, who is a historian, who knows 1748 there was this germ in the air and it created this yeast that we use today, stuff like that. When you have guys that are super nerdy about that, but they're also super grateful of where it came from, I feel like you guys are doing that as well, as trying to just preserve that heritage and that lineage. And even though you're creating a new product, you're still trying to use old mash bills and look through all the archives of old distilling records and stuff like that. And let me know if I'm off base at all. But
no, not at all. I mean, certainly Alan and Erik are like brothers from another mother. So
yeah.
My 15-year-old makes fun of them, saying, "Oh, it's your boyfriend on the phone," and then they get stuck on on all of these sort of esoteric yeasts and mash bills and interesting things for hours. And of course, Alan comes and we're doing a bunch of collaborations, so that should be all fun things for sure. But yeah, I think also the through line in all of it is whiskey is so much about stories and connecting, with something that is, our American history, and really those stories have carried throughout the generations, and that's what's still like touch points today that consumers today can grab hold of. That's what interests me, interests you. It's not just the juice, as they say. It's also the stories that go along with it that are so intriguing.
So I want to stop you right there. If you see me perspiring a little bit, I am in Texas, so we've had a week of nothing but 90 something degrees, and my little
I heard it was like 100 degrees there.
Yeah, it's horrible. And my little air conditioner can't keep up in the shed, so my wife will not let me record in the house because I get loud sometimes, I guess.
I get it.
So on that note, since I am perspiring a little bit, I'd like to open up this bottle you graciously sent. Now, this is the Pennsylvania rye whiskey, the 90 proof. It says you got 95 points at, I can't read it, at a collaboration of something. So you did something good. So I'm gonna dip into this. Tell us a little bit about this one. I think on the back of the bottle it said 36 months. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So that's really our core product. That's our sort of base rye that we a product that we put out. Yeah, there you go. There it is. And so it's very similar mash bill wise to Sam Thompson rye.
Okay.
Largely because Dick actually distilled Sam Thompson. It was contracted at Michter's, Pennsylvania Michters. That's just a few miles up the road from our distillery. So, and I also really gave a nod to Lancaster County specifically with the corn content. So it's not a Kentucky rye, and it's not a Western PA rye. It really sits in the middle with 30% corn.
Okay.
So, and we just and after sort of going back and forth on where we should land with corn and rye content, we just love the counterpoint of a little bit of the sweetness and the spiciness of rye, where one really informs another. I mean, I think for us, and certainly for me, I come from the culinary world. So really it's just a lot of blending and tasting and really flavor profile is so important. So that's initially where we landed with the rye. And since we've, created other mash bills like a, 80/20, like all rye, and some other some other interesting things, rye malts, but this is just our core product.
And I will tell you, just off the nose and the one little sip that I've had so far, and I am going to enjoy this for the rest of our. Well, you did send over another sample, so for some of our talk, I will say it's very cohesive. Everything that's there is really nice. The proof point is actually right on. Normally, ryes can the higher. I mean, this isn't a high proof, but the higher the proof, the spicier they get. So I will say that this proof point is right on.
Glad.
With
it. Go ahead.
It's fine.
When we sometimes we'll release these as single barrels. Mm-hmm. If we taste something that's unique or interesting or amazing in the blend, and then that will release at a cask. But typically, this will always be at 90.
Okay, and like I was saying, it gives you all the flavors you want, but you don't get the sharpness from the ethanol, which makes you think it's rye spicy, as people say. Which I know 100%. that's not really the rye spice. Anyway, long story.
But that's we digress. Yes, we could go on that too. Yes.
Absolutely. Now I will be 100% transparent. Like I said, it's 90 something degrees in here, and I had these bottles in the shed, so I actually stuck it in the fridge, cooled it down a little bit. So it's like it's making my glass condensate a little bit. But I will tell you, when it's warm out and you have a cool, I don't have an ice ball or anything, but when you have a cool rye whiskey, man, there's just something about great. It really hits all the buttons for me. I had another person ask me, what's your summer whiskey drink? And I'm like, a good rye with an ice ball. And I'm like, this one right here, even though with the lower proof, it would get after a while, would get kind of drowned out by the ice. But I think that's what you need. You want that spiciness up front, and then it finally slowly just to kind of taper off, which I think is going to go great. I'll let you know in the near future how it is. But I will tell you that I've really been on a rye kick lately. I've had Herman from Dad's Hat on.
Yay, that's awesome.
Yeah, and a couple of other people. Oh, I had I don't know if you know JJ Jackson.
Of course, we're very good friends with JJ.
Yeah. He came on and he gave me a sample of some weird stuff that he was making as well.
Wacky stuff,
He does. And so like I'm getting more and more familiar with Pennsylvania style rye whiskey, and I will tell you that it's really intriguing to me because it's like you say, it's not your Kentucky. It's not like, it's not even, because I know in Pennsylvania there's dividing lines on how they make it.
It varies even within Pennsylvania to showcase like uber regional history and lineage, and we're also in everything that we do is really grains of glass, is local. So Erik's family grows our rye for us about a mile away from the distillery. His cousins, and they've been continuously farming that land for the last 250 years. It's definitely it's really cool. So it really, in every aspect, we are trying to hit just the local history, and I think that's what speaks to people, is just it sort of reminds me, I'm Italian, so it reminds me of Italy, where they've been nourishing and keeping those traditions alive for hundreds of years, where unfortunately for the United States, Prohibition kind of wiped out a lot of those traditions, certainly in Pennsylvania. So it will take some time, I think, to revive, but I think we have a lot of producers, certainly in Pennsylvania, who are trying to do just that.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about process, if you can.
Of course.
So Are you doing traditional pot still? Are you doing pot hybrid? Are you doing full column still? Are you doing three chamber? Are you, there's
Yes,
we can go so many ways.
There are so many ways. So interestingly, so Dick, at Michter's, and they had the mini system, which was pot stills, and then they had the massive column so he was really familiar with both methods. And we, again, there was a lot of back and forth of, sort of where we wanted to go with the still. What we chose was a continuous column with a thumper doubler. I mean, in reality, it's, there is steam to the thumper. So, there is variation there. And it's obviously very small. It's a 12 inch and about 18 feet high, and pretty much no automation. So it's somewhat unique in, I mean, we're thankful in a lot of ways. And people are always like, oh, you're not using a pot still, you're cheating. So it's this like newfangled. I was like, is it newfangled? It's from the 30s. I don't know. I mean, and for me, American whiskey since that time has been made on these stills. So that's sort of why we move forward with it. The consistency of the product, especially in rye production, just given the nature of the grain. The possibility of scorching in pot stills, it's fresh mash, live steam, through the entire process, as opposed to just kind of, boiling away for hours in the pot still. So those kind of made our decisions for us. And again, we have so little automation on our still that we can make, lots of unique flavor profiles, even though it is a continuous column. Many times I think we all wish that we had more automation, many times, but it is definitely has a personality of its own for sure.
Well, and that's kind of how stills are. It doesn't matter if you're the head distiller for Buffalo Trace, right? There are quirks to every still, and there are things that you're like, I know at this point is where the sweet spot is, or I know when I start to smell this one's particular smell, especially if you're running the same mash bill over and over again, right? I know first thing in the morning, it's going to be hard to get that thing going. So I got to go in a little early, or it's not.
Which is what we do. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and so it's really cool to see the quirks. And when you're working, and I will try when I do like the thumbnails and stuff for this too. I know I've seen pictures of your still site and stuff like that. I'll try to get some of those pictures and put them in the description down below.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, it's so cool to see. And how, so like capacity wise, about how much can you get off the still? I mean, I guess it depends upon how much mash you've made, correct?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, so we can 1,000 gallons will yield us like a little under 3 barrels.
Okay.
So
man, that's a lot of work for 3 barrels of whiskey.
I mean, but and that's I would say is somewhat across the board for
right.
But the wonderful thing is that I'm not collecting high wines and then redistilling, and so for someone with a similarly sized like pot still, that would take at least 3 times as long.
Yeah, 3 times as long, and you're going to get less product in the end.
100%. And I mean, and we love pot stills, but just. Yeah, it's a tough go, can be sometimes.
It is.
And also with our space, we're very, very, very tiny. So we really do have quite a bit of capacity for our small space. And, we always think of it, my husband and of course Alan and JJ and a bunch of the other guys all go to Washington's distillery at Mount Vernon.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that really is history. That is like, you're almost like, if you just close your eyes for a second, you can be back in that moment. And but even George Washington like thought he was making the best and most modern whiskey with what was available to him. He wasn't trying to go back 100 years and make it that way. So I think you're trying to take the best of the past and marry it with the present. So that's sort of our thought process with a lot of our process of what are the the cool things and the best things and the most impactful on flavor that we can draw from the past with I mean a few things from the now.
Yeah. I will tell you, going back to this rye now, it's really kind of strange. It's opening up quite a bit. I guess it's warming up as well.
Yes.
And I'm getting like, I don't know if you've ever had, and somebody might have already said this once before, but they're like the little candies that are the barrels, and they're like root beer flavored or whatever. I'm getting that on the nose.
Oh, very cool.
It's like really sweet, like it's like super sweet nose, but it's almost like that sarsaparilla type,
very much sarsaparilla,
type.
sure.
Yeah, like it's really
First
interesting.
beer.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's really cool, and it's unique to this. Like I said, I've had quite a few Pennsylvania ryes, especially, and I don't know if I've got that with that, but of course, I'd have to side by side them. So I got a job to do, I guess. But
I guess so. That'd be terrible.
Yeah, terrible. I don't want to have to do that. Yeah, but it's so cool that how you can get the different flavors. And I know taste is very subjective to everybody, but like how you can get specific flavors from the amount of rye you're using, or maybe the amount of corn you're using, or because some of the like with Dad's Hat especially, and I'm not trying to talk about them, they don't use any corn at all.
No, I know.
So yeah, so it's like it is a very,
and it makes for a very
profile.
different whiskey.
It really does.
And he has a hybrid. I mean, it's like it's a whole different. It's a whole different vibe, and that's what I love about Pennsylvania distilleries is that we have a few great ones, and they're all doing their own thing. And it just, gives, I think, the consumer, just, more things to get excited about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you were saying, oh, I'm going to lose it. I remember it. You were saying, God dang it. I do this all the time. I get the thought while you're talking, and then by the time you stop talking, it's out of my head. Okay. Moving on. It'll come back to me here in a second. Yeah, exactly. So you said you have a very small facility. About how large is it?
So production area is probably about 3,500 square feet.
Okay. I saw this one Texas distillery. They were distilling in a single wide mobile home. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know if they were doing it legally or not, but I don't.
Who knows?
I saw them.
We don't ask,
I saw
we
them.
don't tell.
Exactly. So for those who might not know what Pennsylvania style rye whiskey is, what makes it different than someone saying getting a Michter's rye, for instance? What would make it different than a Kentucky style?
Think, when we talk about rye, we kind of have to go back to the beginning where that was really the first American whiskey, right? Pennsylvania was the place for the first whiskey. I mean, only in that they're, Kentucky, Tennessee, the more southern places didn't really much exist at that time. I mean, just because people came to, the colonies. So I think, given that rye grew well in this area and all throughout Pennsylvania, and specifically in Lancaster County, there was just I think for the first time, I mean, farming so much informs distilling. So I think for the first time, those initial people who came over, uh, they made whiskey where they were from, but certainly not as they just didn't have the grain surplus in the old world until they came to the United States, and nor did they own any of the land previously. So I think that was a huge shift, just the productivity of New World farming. And so if you had extra grain, what were you going to do with it? It was not really easily transportable. It didn't last for like forever. So I think I mean, literally everyone in Lancaster County distilled. Even we're a Moravian community. We were founded by Moravians here. Even the Seven Sisters of the Moravian Church had their own plot of rye and their own distillation. And then, you walked a mile and there was another distillery and another. And of course, Pennsylvania Michters was the first place to put out the shingle to say, I'm not a farm distillery or I'm not a miller. This is all we do is distill. And it was, the oldest operating distillery in the country before it closed. Right. So I think you have, that early American history, and then really all other forms of whiskey are after that. So it is sort of unique and special. Again, Prohibition really wiped out most of that history. I mean, you go to Kentucky, they know Pennsylvania whiskey history better than most Pennsylvanians. Like they were, schooling us, and in many of their family trees, the top person is somebody from Pennsylvania. So, it is sort of interesting in how it evolved in that way. So, yeah, so that sets it apart and makes it unique. And of course, the grain in and of itself and the character of the whiskey. I think as people started to move further south and use, mostly corn, which is, obviously a lot less expensive to distill. I mean, rye is a pain in the ass, pardon me, to distill. Compared to making bourbon, because we do both. And then corn is a lot cheaper. You get a lot more whiskey, and a third of your mash is backset. So I think and also I think as we as a country move to like a sweeter palate, just given also kind of concurrently at the same time, sort of the augmentation of sugar products was happening as well. So I think that's sort of what, moved a lot of whiskey production in that direction.
Yeah. Awesome. So that was leading me to my next question. How do you guys, where you're at, how do you cater to that palate that's likes more sweet whiskeys and more, they want this more bourbon profile? How do you cater to that, or not cater to that? I guess I don't know how I'm trying to say it, but like, yeah.
I mean, we do have more corn. We have some corn in our mash bill, which is not in the Western PA style. But Lancaster County is the most productive farmland in the country that's not irrigated, right? So Florida and California are more productive than we are, but obviously they have irrigation. So, and it's a lot of corn. So we just felt like we really had to have that as part of just a piece of what we were doing as far as rye is concerned. So I think, although I wouldn't characterize our rye as sweet, it is maybe a touch, more balanced in that regard. And of course, we do make bourbon as well, just given Dick's lineage of the famous A.H. Hirsch. So, and that is the mash bill that we use as well for our bourbon. And we're just a little bit slow for it to be, released because, a young rye is delicious, a young bourbon less so.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you by firsthand account, me being from Texas, we have a lot of people producing bourbon here as well.
Yeah, of course.
And coming out 2 years old because it's black as molasses, but that's all you taste. That's all you taste is wood and the young grain and stuff like that. And some of them are okay, right? But and there's some people that are doing it very well, like Still Austin and places like that, doing it really well because they learn to combat the heat and combat the elements and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm guessing you guys have to do that too. Being in Pennsylvania, it gets pretty chilly up there. Is that correct?
So for us, we have massive temperature swings. So, it's certainly in the summer months, it's ridiculously hot and humid. And fall and spring are more temperate. And then, winter definitely can be cold for sure.
Right.
But yeah, so we do, I think for aging purposes, we do get those like great swings, but it's not just like heat all the time. Yeah. Although it's, it's sort of trending in that direction, but.
Yeah, well, it happens. I mean, like the hot gets hotter. It feels like, yeah. Anyway, okay, so we're about 30 minutes in. So you sent over a one that I really was hoping to get a sample of, and this is none other than the Rosen Rye. This one is coming in at 106 proof and is 31 months old. Now, Rosen Rye, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a varietal of rye. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's an
I just wanted to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about this and why Rosen Rye.
And that's a great question. Rosen Rye was much like many heirloom varietals of vegetables and fruit and grains, and sort of went by the wayside, I think, to industrialization and just farming things that were more prolific and easier and cheaper, of course, I think is always in the calculus. Mm-hmm. So a good friend of ours, Laura Fields, in the Delaware Valley Fields Foundation, who was really instrumental and pivotal in bringing this grain back. And in speaking to Dick Stoll is really where Rosen came from, because he distilled with it. So, and remembered it being better and making great whiskey. And I think when Laura heard that, she, really made this gargantuan effort to bring it back. And it was years in the making of a little seed and slowly getting more and more until finally we were able to have enough grain to distill one barrel. And Dick was there and was still alive for that, so that was like super amazing and meaningful for him. But he really was the impetus of this Rosen revival. And now it is grown on the Klein farm, which is our family farm. That's just a mile up the road from us. So it's really come full circle. And the first time that we distilled it really was, it's like a test case. Like, is it better? Like, is it, or is just this like a remembrance of, a storied grain that's gone. And in that first distillation, where we had all kinds of other distillers there with us, and it was better, even in the white, like even in the unaged, right off the still. Mm-hmm. Really, the viscosity, the sweetness, it was pretty amazing. So then it just sort of, pushed out from there. It was also, very popular in Michigan, and their distilleries who are doing it there, and then the rest of, Pennsylvania. Liberty Pole, and of course, Herman had his, there was a concurrent project. So everyone was just kind of like, and the hope is that, it can be a Pennsylvania, grain that we can all use and make our distinct styles with the Rosen rye, which is kind of, starting to happen and is really cool.
That is. So now that it's been years in the making, do you have enough product every year to make the whiskey to put in barrel?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like, oh, we have enough every year to make one barrel. I don't want it to be that. I don't want it to be that because
which would have been so sad. Yeah, that's
yes.
So our so now there are multiple farmers throughout Pennsylvania who are growing it as well. So you'll definitely be seeing a lot more Rosen rye hitting the shelves, in the years to come for sure.
Awesome. I will tell you just on the nose, I took a small sample of it, but just on the nose, it is night and day different. Like the smell of it is just it's like you say, it's a lot darker, it's a lot richer. And
really
the proof point is a little higher, but I don't think that's it. And it's almost like I'm already, and this is 31 months. I'm already getting like that tobacco and like some leather off of it from the barrel, which, as we well know, rye presents really nicely in a barrel, pretty young. So
it does.
When do you normally? I know the right whiskey is ready when it's ready, but like when do you normally pull it to barrel?
So like how old, at what age do we pull? So, we start tasting after 2 years, for our PA product, the PA rye. And then kind of we're sitting at around 3 years and change, for single barrels typically is where we start to taste. But for us, we do have the luxury in being small, that you can just kind of go to the barrel barn and just kind of get caught up there, drinking and tasting. Yeah. And Alan has been in there for many hours.
Yeah. He's told me of the stories back there in the barn. So it's so cool because, again, reviving an old heritage heirloom grain, bringing it back. I know there's a couple of other ones that weren't used as well, and I know that there's a lot of people now using blue corn and red corn and all these other types of corn varietals, and
of course.
And it's really cool.
I think with corn was spearheaded that for sure.
Yeah, because there's something about the number one yellow dent corn. It's just like a commodity grain, right? It's not really, it gives you ethanol. That's all it really does. Yeah, it might have a little corn sweetness, but like there's really not a whole lot there. So when you get to these varietals, and with rye, it's going to be way different because rye in itself is a very flavorful grain, right? If you've ever had rye bread, or
I always, when I taste people who are somewhat new to the rye category, it's always the rye bread versus cornbread comparison. I think that is easy for people to, everyone's eaten it, they get it. But it is so true. It just does have a lot more flavor. So these sort of varietal changes definitely just wildly change the product.
I will tell you, on the second sip of that, it almost tastes like it has a finish, like a wine finish or something to it. It's really interesting. Like it's really coming across like with not as stringent, but like, how you get with some wines or even wine finished whiskeys, you'll get like that grape skin type taste. And it's getting some of that, which I enjoy. I really like that. I know it's probably not in there. It might be psychosomatic, or maybe I'm just psycho. I don't know, but it's really cool.
It's there.
Absolutely. We'll go that way. But it's really cool. And I'm really enjoy that. And it's cool that you can showcase that thank you so much for the sample. I
Of
know,
course.
I'm sure that this is one of your more premium offerings, and I don't want to
Yes, it definitely is.
take away from a paying customer. So I appreciate that. But at the same time, like, rye in itself is like you said, is a hard grain to work with. But you guys just continue to work with rye and try to make it as best you can. And I have to applaud you for that, because that's you could easily just say, you know what, this sucks too bad.
Well,
it's too much
really
work.
funny that you say, because we always joke. So because all of our equipment was made in Kentucky,
Mhm.
so which is awesome, and they are the preeminent, whiskey people, and they were all a pleasure to work with. But in our when we sized up in our cooker, um, there were just some rye adjustments to be made, shall we
Okay.
say? And one of the guys who was sort of the engineer of, he's like, in Kentucky when we like have these like issues when we just said, oh, it's the rye. It just was always like whatever problem was happening and it was blamed on rye in Kentucky, which I'm like, you know what? You're probably pretty close to accurate.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, because I have luckily been able to be with people while they're mashing in all right, and it's very, very difficult, and it's very sticky and gummy.
It can be, yeah, it really
Yeah,
is. It's difficult for sure.
it is. Yeah. So sorry, we were glitching out a little bit, and I didn't know if I was like, is it me or is it you? But yeah, no, it's a really cool, cool to see. And again, thank you for that. Just doing the side by side itself just showcases how different each rye varietal is. And
The mash bill there is the same.
oh, okay, it's the same, just the rose
Yeah.
and rye instead.
And that's
Yeah,
part of the reason why I sent those two to you, so
right.
you can sort of just really taste the difference in the grain.
Absolutely. And that's what's cool from one whiskey nerd to another, I guess, is I want to send you this one so you can side by side them and see what the difference is. Like, and that's what's so cool about this community. And I favor myself in that community. I'm not a distiller. I don't work for a distillery or anything, but I do follow everything that everyone's doing. And so it's kind of one of these things. I love looking at the back of the bottle. I love going on the website and just geeking out on your story, awesome. and the thing. And it's not because I want to write a book about it, which I've actually thought about that at one point. But it's also like, I want to fill my head with that knowledge. There's some people that are like, I just want to drink, and
totally.
That's fine. I get that. You go buy your Blantons and you're fine, right? But 100%, for us, go ahead.
The story just informs the taste too on so many levels.
It does.
I mean, we are those people too. So it's not just our own product. When we've done tastings and traveling and, all throughout Kentucky, it's being there. It's the people, it's the stories. It's all the points of differentiation that make each distillery unique. That's what gets us excited too.
Yeah. And it's so cool when you see, or when I see, or even you, when you see a distillery like yourself getting excited about what their product is and showcasing it and graciously coming on people's podcasts and doing things and just supporting the brand instead of just saying, hey, we got a new SKU, slap a label on it, ship it out. When you're excited about what you do, it shows not only in the whiskey, but it also shows in the brand itself. And you can talk a little bit about how the brand, since you guys have started working with it, how it's kind of evolved into what it is.
I mean, it's really has been a labor of love, and definitely it's since Dick's passing really, every move we make is, sort of is that question, like, are we still being true to our original vision, and would Dick be proud of what we're doing? So I think that's sort of like is very much still guides us in the choices that we make. And sometimes we sort of get lost in toiling in obscurity, which is, which you appreciate, but sometimes you sort of, feel out of touch with sort of the larger landscape, if that makes sense. Just because we are a small family-run business, it's me, Erik, my father-in-law, a handful of employees, and that's it. So, and we don't get out much because we're just doing the thing, if that makes sense. Yes. So we don't have a lot of like, brand reps and people who we don't spend a lot of money in marketing. We've tried to make it a stylistic choice. But the reality is that, when you're a small business and you're a family run craft distillery, you have to make choices about where you spend your money. So, which is limited. Like, we're self-funded. We're just doing it's just us. So we always want to put it back into the product or into things that make the product better. So in that way, that's sort of how we've shepherded the brand. Would Dick like it? Are we putting money into giving the best whiskey that we can, and also some value proposition for the consumer? So, I mean, I think that's just kind of where we land on sort of from a brand perspective, and hopefully, trying to increase production like gradually, and trying to move out organically, but really with keeping our eye on the prize, which is, and so much of our preservation of history is we're preserving by production. That's what we're doing. So if we're not taking care of the whiskey, I think it's sort of all for naught.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this: I didn't know Dick at all. But I will say, and this is the first time I've had your product as well, so I can't say for anything. But I will say, with what I've tried, and take this for what it is, I feel like you are doing an homage to him, whatever you want to call it. And
yeah, he was a special human.
It gives you a drive, doesn't it? It gives you that.
It gives you purpose.
That kick in the ass to get up and do it again, because you're like you're putting this legacy a little bit further, and it's super cool, and I'm happy to have a small part of it, because like you say, not having the marketing budget and all the people that go out in the world and sell your wares to everybody else, you have to do it very organically, because any money that's spent outside the company, it could be a make or break moment,
Of course,
so you don't want to make the wrong decision and ruin the company or file for bankruptcy. But we see, I don't know if you watch the news at all, but there's been so many distilleries that have filed for bankruptcy, because of one thing or the other. I mean, literally, it's a really tough business.
It is. Well, no. I mean, it's a lot of capital. It's capital heavy. You're, when I kind of look around, I'm like, why don't I have money? I'm like, oh yeah, that's all.
I own a distillery. I own it. Yeah, I got a bunch of barrels back there that they're not good yet. They're just barrels.
To our warehouse, and we're like, okay, it's here.
It's here. It's here. You just hug the barrel.
Feel a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. You tell the kids, come. This is your.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is where the money is right here. You're not getting anything. No, we can't get a new Nintendo game. It's all in the barrel. Sorry. Yeah. No. I mean, so let's talk about the
same old lacrosse stick. That's it.
Yeah. Exactly. So let's talk about the barrel warehouse, since I brought it up again, or you brought it up. About how many barrels does it hold? And is there more than one?
So we have some like containers that are on site.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is there is most of our stock is aging in an old tobacco barn that's off site, which is really cool. And so I mean that warehouse in and of itself could hold probably about 800 barrels.
Okay.
So we haven't moved from that yet.
Okay.
And then we also have containers on site, which probably hold another, 50. So in our tasting, we kind of start to bring over barrels that will be released probably in 6 months or so, kind of into the hot box as we say, because those containers are uniquely warm.
Yes.
Very, very hot. So even in the cooler months, the temperature stays pretty warm in there, which is also sort of a nod to Pennsylvania heat cycling and heating of warehouses. So we're kind of trying to replicate that in a way. So that's sort of what we do.
Awesome. So let's talk about distribution and any new releases you guys have that are coming out in the near future. So tell us a little bit about that.
So we're only distributed in Pennsylvania at the moment. I mean, obviously Pennsylvania is the largest purchaser of whiskey in the country, given because it's a controlled state.
Right.
But we are direct to consumer throughout the United States via MASH networks. So you can find that on our website and just click on it and get stuff delivered right to your door. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we'll typically, I'll give them a little bit of rosin when we come out with our, sherry cask finish, rum cask, port, or, whatever finishes, any of the unique sort of products that we're typically will only be distillery release. Like our state stores won't have it, but people will get availability on MASH networks to have it delivered to them.
Awesome. Yeah. And what about any new releases you guys have coming out?
So I think we just released the rosin.
Okay.
So that came out last week.
Okay.
So
Wow. Okay.
So that's our newest release right now. And then probably, I mean, typically in the fall is when we release kind of most of our, fall to holiday season is when we're kind of get more unique one-offs. And, the Dick Stoll bourbon for his birthday in November is always a good one to look out for. Probably another rosin release, maybe a finished whiskey of some kind, possibly our own bourbon as well. I mean, we're still tasting, so I can't make any promises, but I mean, it's getting to 5 years old, but again, it's just
I know.
It's just a long road.
It is. It really is.
We're like, yes. You're like, well, I'm over 4 years. It's good. Nope.
Yeah. No.
And we don't use small barrels. So we use standard size, 53. Right. And typically 2-year air dried staves. We do think make a difference, and so it's just we're part of the waiting game.
Well, and that's whiskey, right? Whiskey's about the wait. It's about the waiting. I mean, you wait.
And we're lucky that we don't have anyone breathing down our neck to tell us when we have to release things. So that was part of the reason why we stayed really the size that we are, is so we could do that.
Yeah. Besides, maybe the mortgage people might be like, "Hey, you need to get some whiskey out to pay your bills."
For the moment, I have them at bay.
Okay. Well, see, that's all that matters, really. Like life is about getting from the one Friday to the next, right?
You know what I mean? It's all about juggling.
It is. And my mom used to say something back in the day. She used to say, I'm robbing from Peter to pay Paul. You know, like you're constantly,
life,
you know, taking money out of this account and putting it over there. And okay, we have enough here. Let's put
the noises where I go,
yes.
Yeah, people know what I'm saying at work. So,
yeah. Exactly.
No,
you want to get yeah.
It's so true.
It is. I mean, and it's so funny because like it doesn't matter what business you're in, what you're doing, it's a struggle. It literally is a struggle out there. And you guys are making a product that takes time. And you have to sit on it and you have to just kind of hope, right? You have to be a hope, a wing, and a prayer on it. Where is it going to be good? Is it going to be crap? Who knows? Like obviously, if the distillate is good coming off the still, I think bet it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and that was really another driving force where, you know, Dick's favorite whiskey was Heaven Hill for like $19 a bottle.
Yeah.
And he was like, look, he's like, and he would be like, look, you are not putting out crap that costs like, you know, $150 and nobody wants to drink it. And, you know, so we always have that in mind as well. I mean, and it's a lot to ask the consumer I do ask them to pay more, right? I don't have any economies.
Right.
I can't buy in bulk and sit on it for, that's just the nature of craft, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And it's not like small producers of food where it is better.
Yeah.
Big producers of whiskey make really good whiskey at a really good price. So craft distillers are kind of up against it because unlike food where I really can say, well, mine is better and I take the time and there's no this and there's no that, and it's just with whiskey, it is much different. So I think it's definitely a hurdle. I think for people to pay more for inferior products. So I think that's something that we really are very mindful of. Just in, you know, and not to disparage, you know, any craft whiskeys, but, you know, you get into where, you know, you buy things that are released before they should be, sometimes aged in casks that maybe were too small, and you ask people to pay, you know, $90 for it is, you know, so I think there's also a lot of education that has to happen. Not only just rye education and why rye, but then also, you know the stuff that you had before. Try this; it's different.
Yeah,
and here's
absolutely. Why. Yeah. It's hard though, right? Because it's hard to educate the consumer because, for one, being a consumer, we all consume. Obviously, you want what's cheap and good.
Right.
Right. And so like, but it's almost, I know that's two things, but it's almost like a three-legged stool, right? You can get one or two, you have to get all three or it's going to fall over. Like you can't just think that like, just because if you want good, it's going to cost more. And if you want craft, it's going to cost more. So if you want good craft, it's going to cost even more, unfortunately. And we didn't even talk about this, but like, you know, the price of the bottle, the actual glass is more expensive. The cork is more expensive.
That's what I mean. I don't have any economies.
The label is more expensive. I mean, it's across the board for everybody, right? Like, and not to get on this soapbox, but like, you know, with everything that's going on in the world right now with the tariffs and things like that, like people don't, I have a buddy who lives in Canada and he has a little whiskey tube thing that he does. And he's like, he's like right across the border from New York, I guess, or whatever. And he has a PO box over there. He picked up some whiskey that somebody had shipped him, brought it across, and they charged him 40% tax on that bottle of whiskey. So
Insane.
he literally paid the price of it plus 40% on top of it.
Plus.
So he's like, guess what? I'm not going to do it anymore. So, so we're in a market right now to where people are getting more and more conscious about where they put their money, because they want to put it in.
I've seen it already.
So have I.
And I see it in my own house. I mean, people are just really holding on to cash right now because of the instability, and people just don't know what's going to happen. So they're just like, let's wait and see. And that's sort of what's, I think people aren't going out as much. I mean, we have a tasting room as well, you know, where we do cocktails and tastings and, you know, all the things. And, you know, I think it's just across the board. People are just holding.
Yeah. Well, and so when they do go buy a bottle at the liquor store or the bottle shop or Costco or wherever the hell you buy your liquor these days, they're looking at the back of the label. They're looking at the story. They're not reaching. Some are, but they're not reaching for that same bottle that they've been getting. They want something different, because if they're going to spend the money, they want to have something different and something unique. And
they're also not buying as many bottles.
No, they're not.
Again, it's why your bottle.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're going to create a product, it needs to show in the glass. And
I agree.
Unfortunately, for a lot of smaller distilleries, like you were saying earlier, they don't have the foothold to get glass to lips, right? They don't have the foothold to get people to try it. And so I feel like it's kind of my job. It's a unfortunate. It's kind of my job to let these people know that Stoll Wolfe is making some amazing products. Please go purchase today.
Well, we thank you for all your efforts. It's really you and other nerds and geeks like you who really make it happen for the niche, you know, small brands. And you know, we really can't thank you enough. I mean, we've been really lucky that we had you know, Dick Stoll to not only guide us in the process, which I feel, you know, really leapfrogged us ahead of a lot of people, just because you know, he had, you know, 40 years of knowledge that and that lineage that dates back to, you know, 1753 and all through the ages, and, you know, and the Beam legacy. And so that really helped us. So I feel like we skipped a lot of the mistakes just in the distillation itself. And we were very blessed that way. I know my husband Eric, who was, you know, really his protege, was very thankful to have all the knowledge, and just, you know, because distilling is unlike brewing, that you can't sort of practice in your basement and figure it out.
Right.
And also and then the other layer is then you have to wait to actually taste if you did it right.
Absolutely. And that's the crux of it, right? Because you know, you made good product, but then you wait, and then it's a waiting game. But then, oh no, it went too far. You know, like you can get over oaked, you can get you know, too tannic. You can
add, you know, in his day, if it was over 9 years, they would add younger whiskey to it.
I've heard that. I've heard that.
That's, I mean, he's like, oh no, he's like, that's just all you're tasting is wood. He's like, no, you need to add. I mean, I think, you know, definitely the glut of whiskey in the 80s, combined with Scotch whiskey coming to more prominence. Those two things together definitely made for much longer age statements in American whiskey. Obviously not sort of realizing the climate and reused cooperage of Scotch whiskey. Like, it totally makes sense that you're getting something that's aged for 20 years. I mean, it's like, 40 degrees, like the whole, and you're in a second fill barrel, like, sure. But, I don't know, 20 years for some American whiskey that's roasting on the East Coast here in the South in a first fill barrel. They just had a lot of barrels left over because nobody had been drinking whiskey. So they're like, well, let's figure out a way to get people to buy older and older whiskey. And I think that sort of those two things came together in a very smart way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, I got two more questions, then I'm going to let you go because I don't want to take up any more of your time. The first question would be, where do you see, and if you can't answer this, I get it. Where do you see the whiskey, even especially the rye whiskey world going in the near future? I give it, let's say 5 years, right? Where do you see it going? Because I've seen in the past 5 years, I've seen rye make this resurgence. I actually did a full podcast about the resurgence of rye whiskey, and where for me personally, obviously, I've been into whiskey for a long time, but it's just in these past couple of years where I'm like, man, that is a banger rye. That one's great. That one's great. Like this, not everybody. There's some crappy rye out there. Don't get me wrong. And there's some really good rye out there too, though.
There's delicious rye. And also, I think for us, so this is how I look at it, where I'm like, oh, maybe we're too late. The rye thing is like, it's happening already. But to you and I and people who are entrenched, rye has just been emerging, but for most of the public, they're not even there yet. We're just getting people matriculating over to rye from bourbon. Like it's all new. So in that way, it gives me a lot of excitement for the future of rye. And then you have sort of bigger names, Beam coming into Pennsylvania at West Overton, who we will be doing a collaboration with as well, which is really cool. And that's great for little people like me. I was like, they have money to educate people.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So I think, in 5 years, it will just start to really catch on with the general public. Because I think really bourbon has done this amazing thing and raised everybody's awareness for brown spirits. So in that way, like, I'm very thankful to Kentucky as well for, really putting the money behind American whiskey, period, has only allowed other varieties to move forward. So I don't even think we're even remotely there yet.
Right. Well, and I'll throw this back, and I know you guys don't do this, or if you do, you can let me know. That's like just this year, American single malt is actually a category. I'm putting myself in this category. We have been making American single malt for over 20 years. McCarthy's and all of them, they were cornerstoning this. I just did a deep dive on some Stranahan's last night. Oh my God. Like it's so amazing, right? These single malts that they're coming out with, and everybody's like, oh, what's that? Scotch? No, it's not. No, it's totally different. It's so cool. And I feel, and see, rye's been around for a long time. Obviously, it's a known thing, but people don't give it the credit they should. I feel, because they just use it as, oh man, I'm going to say it. They use it as a cocktail, right? It's a rye cocktail. It's all it is. They use, Wild Turkey 101 rye in their cocktail when they're making a old fashioned Manhattan.
I applaud them at least for making the matriculation from bourbon in their cocktails to rye, as it should be. But yes, Absolutely. There's much more to explore beyond that for sure.
Absolutely. And then we get into the cast finishing of rye. And I've said this on multiple podcasts in the past. I feel personally that rye whiskey takes a finish from
agreed.
From a wine barrel, Madeira. So it doesn't matter. It is so amazing.
I have a couple bottles left of So we did a sherry cask finish. Before all my whiskey stuff, I managed 3-star restaurants in New York and was definitely a lot more into wine than I was, than whiskey per se. Because I think, American whiskey was just sort of emerging
Right.
at that time in the United States, especially in New York. So we went for Oloroso sherry as opposed to PX, just for a little bit less sweetness. I love the, I'm Italian, so I love the marzipan almond thing that happens there. It's so good.
Yes, it is.
Good. And a lot of people by us they don't know from sherry necessarily. That's kind of esoteric not for whiskey geeks, but for just general public. They're like, what? Like everyone likes the rum finish. They're like all about it. And it's awesome. I like it too.
Right.
But the sherry's my favorite. So I'll definitely send you some.
I appreciate that because when I did my whiskey sommelier courses, when I think it was level 3. Anyway, long story. We actually did a sherry tasting at the end of one of the nights, and somebody had brought all the sherries, every single one of them that you could find, even some obscure ones I'd never heard of. And I know sherry just by itself is it's pungent and it's strong, and it's and getting to try those. And then of course they had brought some whiskeys that were finished in these.
That's fabulous. It was
absolutely
tasting of side by that's fabulous.
I mean, it blew my mind. Like I was trying to write down or put notes on my phone of these different things, and I finally told the guy who was putting the thing on, I'm like, you just need to write a book and let me just have the book, put it on Audible so I can listen to it, because I'm like, because like this is the nerd stuff right here, you know what I mean? Like we're over here drinking sherry trying to get the notes off of whiskey from sherry, like it is so nerdy. But like to me, there's some people that don't care for sherry, and I understand, and that's fine, more for me, right? But it's one of those things where like you mix it with a good whiskey or a good rye whiskey, man, there's something about it.
And it's still, I mean, sherry is great, and it's really amazing in cocktails as well.
It really is.
Yeah. So and I think when people think of it, and it's sort of like how people like will relate sometimes to gin, where it's just some old person's drink. And they most people haven't even tried it, or at least not in the last 20 years. So you sort of like to give them some some interesting, more esoteric things.
Absolutely.
We're sort of hoping to expand that program, and I'd really love to do some Armagnac and some fun stuff. But
yes,
we'll get there. I just gotta find
I know. Time, money, and energy. That's all it takes. Yeah. all of it. And another thing, I'm gonna lose it. Golly, I keep losing it tonight, man. It's all good. So, yeah. Last question. Let's go. Where can people find? You said you had an online store. Where can people find?
In Pennsylvania, on my website, nationwide shipping to your door on my website.
Okay. That's stollenwolfe.com.
Stollenwolfe.com.
Okay.
And Pennsylvania residents have a lot of different ways to. And of course, if anyone's traveling, please stop by the distillery, and we always have distillery-only things.
That is amazing. So I will have the address of the distillery if y'all want to swing by there. I will have the website, all the things, any Instagram handles and stuff. They'll be down there as well. And I cannot thank you enough for hanging out with me.
I cannot thank you enough for having me. I really appreciate it.
It has been a blast, and also. The whiskey's amazing. So I'm going to say it. I'll be the first to say it. I hopefully I'm not the first to say it or the last to say it, but I knew that I was in good company when I had actually heard of you from Alan. So I'm like, okay, if he likes them, they got to be halfway decent, right? So let's see what's going on with them. And he's the red-headed stepchild of whiskey, but we still love him, right?
He does amazing things.
He is a character, unlike any other. He is an old man in a young man's body. And he's not that young anymore. But
he's still
doing
pretty
some.
young.
He is pretty young. He's younger than I am. So that's
he's younger than me. So
exactly. So I can't thank you enough. But this has been so much fun, and I love showcasing small distilleries. Not only that, but ones that are doing something so cool, so different, but yet staying true to themselves, staying true to their brand, and true to their heritage. And that's what I feel like that's what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And let's stay in touch for sure. Absolutely. Y'all know where to find me. If you need to get a hold of me, it'll be down below as well. And I think that's it. We're good to go. All right. Until next time, keep your spirits up. Have a good one.
Bye.